I misplaced him, as if I set him down somewhere and forgot to pick him back up, as if I let him out of my sight and forgot the last place I saw him. The truth is, I didn't lose my husband. He died. People always say to me, I don't know how you do this. They don't know just how close you and I have grown. Faith, you are how I push through. Faith, you are how I am okay. Faith, you are the reason I did not give up. Without you, I would have allowed myself to fall short of God's glory. Without you, I would not have trusted God, and what a scary, lonely place that would be. Faith, you are the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. But you are also the source of power and strength that I never knew I needed so much. My faith in God, His promises, His word, are the answers to how I survived this chapter of my life. Without my faith in God, the story would have ended far worse. The pages of my life would have read quite differently. But with my faith, I will continue to push through, because although the grief journey is tough, I also know I will never walk it alone. This is my love letter to you, about my feelings for you, a letter to not giving up, not giving in, and learning to walk by faith every step of the way. May the lessons I've learned, the stories I've shared, and the letters I've written be an inspiration to that broken heart I experienced the day I lost my husband. May my heartbreak be a source of light to help another broken heart find its way out of the darkness that grief creates.
Okay, so hi guys. Okay, so I was trying to find which letter I wanted to read out of the book, and this morning I was trying to write another letter that didn't quite happen. So I started writing the letter and then I stopped. So I'm gonna just read just a quick passage from my book to anybody that's new here. This is the book that I wrote. It's called Love Letter to Grief: Learning to Walk by Faith. I wrote this book. I kind of started journaling immediately after my husband passed away, exactly 7 years ago. And so, in journaling and going to grief therapy, my therapist recommended that I continue to keep writing, and eventually, I put most of my writings into a book. So, I will read the actual letter that I wrote the night my husband actually passed away. Love letter to my husband. I haven't sat still much at all the past hours, and when I do, I can't seem to stop the tears from falling. I've loved you since I was 12. You've been my husband almost 5 years, and I was sure we had many, many more years to come. You made me smile, laugh, live, and love. You made me better, and you helped me grow. You've been the one guarantee in my life for so long, I don't know what to think now that you're gone. I keep thinking how crazy it is that we sat down Friday afternoon and talked about everything that we've been going through, and now you're gone. God knew I needed to hear those words that you said to me. I only wish I had written them down so that I would never misplace one word. You're my heart, my soul, my first and my all. I'm so lost now thinking that we made it over the for better or worse. And not even 12 hours later, I'm sitting here at Till Death Do Us Part. This can't be life right now. I'm so hurt. I'm so sad. I'm so confused. I'm so lost. I'm so crushed. I'm so broken. I cry from a place so deep in my soul that I didn't even know existed until yesterday morning. This is what real heartbreak feels like. I just wanted to do life with you. I just wanted I just wanted you to know that I loved you, and having you as my partner, as my friend, as my child's father, as my listening ear, my cheerleader, and my number one fan, my personal chef and my provider. You're the only person who could drive me insane 1 minute and make me smile the next. I couldn't be mad at you long because I loved you so much. We weren't perfect, but we were perfectly paired. I know God designed us for one another. I have confirmation of that. I thank God for choosing me to be your wife. I thank you for accepting God's plan for us. I keep taking time for the hours I shared with you on Friday, talking and crying, laughing and hugging. God knew exactly what I needed. And the only way I would be okay is if I had that with you. I'm so grateful, even in the midst of my sorrows. I'm so blessed in the turbulence of this storm. Your children are blessed to have you for the time that they did. And I give you my word to love them harder each day. So maybe one day they will be okay. This hurts right now, but know that your life will forever be celebrated, respected, and cherished when it comes to me. You are the one part of my love story I wish never ended because you are the only one I ever wanted to play the lead role. You're the chorus to my favorite love song, and I'll forever sing because you, my love, not only made me better, you made me whole. I miss you more than you'll ever get to see because I loved you more than you ever have known. So that was the letter I wrote the night that my husband passed away. And I okay, so I'm all over the place. So 7 in the Bible is supposed to represent completion and perfection. A lot of people say. So I guess in my head, I had prepared myself to think that year 7 would be some type of full circle moment for me and perhaps make me better understand some of the things that I have been going through the past 7 years. And although I can admit that I've learned so much about myself, and there are moments where I feel like, oh my God, like I've actually like got a hold of this and I think I figured most of it out. Cause I do feel like that some days. But then there's like these moments where life just happens and I'm just forced to kind of sit with my true feelings about what I'm going through and what I've experienced. So so I don't know if you guys know this, but my birthday is exactly 7 days away from the day my husband passed away. And so in my family, birthdays are a huge deal. Like your birthday is like a national holiday and it's supposed to be like the best thing ever. And so in celebrating my birthday 7 years ago, I was with my best friends I've been friends with since I was in kindergarten. We um we were in LA having the time of my life, like literally having the time of my life. And um, I didn't really quite understand like why I was having so much fun, but then like coming home and everything kind of unfolding was just kind of like this like poetic justice, almost like as if God was like, I'm going to give you so much happiness in this week to kind of sustain you for what you're about to go through. And of course, when everything happened, I kept looking back at it thinking like, oh my God, like, like let me just get back to my next birthday because if I was that happy on this birthday, the next birthday should bring the same thing. So this past week, as some of you guys know, I was in Barbados and again, having the time of my life. And I was sitting, we did a reservation at this restaurant and we did a sunset dinner. And we're sitting there watching the sunset. And I just started crying. And I know my friends must think I'm crazy because like, why are you? It's a sunset. Why are you crying? But I did. Like I started crying because it was just like sometimes it's like just looking at like the nature that God creates. It's just like a reminder that like even in the midst of everything that you're going through, like you're not doing it by yourself, and that there is a greater power that is like orchestrating everything around you. And so it's like just watching the sunset and just like mentally trying to prepare myself for like the next couple of days because typically the days leading up to today are super hard. So I try to focus on just like being present and like just embracing where I am and thanking God for like the way he's handled everything for me. But I don't know, it's still like it's still these moments where I'm thinking like, okay, I'll probably be okay. So I got off work this morning. I came home and I laid down. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just give me some sleep and I'll be fine. And then I just like uncontrollably, I just started sobbing and just crying. And it's just like, it's frustrating because it's like 7 years later, I feel like I know I'm in a mentally, I'm in a really good space. But it's like literally, it was like a few, like probably 30 minutes this morning where I felt emotionally the exact same place I was 7 years ago. And so for me, it's like I've always said this, like grief is love, like packaged up. Like if you there's the only way you grieve is when you love somebody. And so in feeling grief, it almost feels like it's reassuring that 7 years later that my husband still holds such a place in my heart that I am emotional. But then it's also like just a reminder of like where I am. And so some days it's like, it's like these, like, yeah, it's like you say, it's like waves. Like some days you go back and you're like, oh, okay, like I'm good. I'm in a good space. And then grief just does something to just like slap you in the face. And I think every, like, it's year 7, but then it's like I'm leading up to Taylor's senior year, and just like emotionally, like I think for me, it's like I'm grieving her dad for myself, but I'm also grieving her dad for her, because it's just like all these amazing moments that I feel like he's missed out on and she's missed out on. So it makes it like, super hard, because it's just some things that I just know like he would like rock out with her for. Like she does powerlifting, and I know like the main reason she chose powerlifting is because her dad was like super strong and he played football, and there's like these pictures of him like lifting weights and stuff. And I think it's like her way of, I don't know, and this is just my assumption. She never said this to me, but I feel like it's like her way of like, like staying connected to her dad somewhat. And so it's like those moments that I feel like, man, like if he was here, like he could be so good for her in that moment. Of course, I'm doing my thing. I'm a super mom it up every time, but just like powerlifting, oh my God, like he would be like knocking this at the ballpark for her. And I don't know, it's just the emotions of like knowing that, she's coming for her senior year and trying to decide on colleges and college tours and all this kind of stuff. And so I wish that she had that. I wish that he was here to kind of, help her with those moments. And then, as some of you also know, a few weeks ago on my stepson's birthday, he was shot. And I just feel like I think that is probably kind of playing its role as well with the grief. It's because thank God he's okay, and it wasn't bad, but it's just like the reality that we know that like a bullet has like nobody's name on it. And so just like, I always think about like the dash between your life and your death, and just and I know you shouldn't think worst case scenario, but like my brain and the things I've been through, it's very hard for me not to think worst case scenario. So just like every once in a while, I have this thought in my head that tells me like the reality that his date and ending date could have been the same had, like had God not spared him and said it wasn't his time, thank God. And so I don't know, it's just like that is like also kind of like emotionally messing with me. And like my stepson is like literally my soul outside of my body. Like to know that I can love a child I didn't give birth to as much as I love him is just like, that's my other baby. And so just like that is kind of, messing with my head. And I know like he has to be thinking about that and processing that, as he also is, today looking at, like the 7-year passing of his dad. But I don't know. Grief is grief. It's just, it comes, it goes. We can't control it. We can't escape it. And, that's just where I am. So I haven't done love letter to grief in a while, but I felt like it would be weird for me to go through the day and not talk about it and not share with people that I share everything with already. And so, somebody on the other side is asking me a question. And so I will do, like, if you guys have questions, I'm an open book, literally. So anybody that's read my book, my entire story is in the book. Like, I'm very transparent. I've always talked about it very openly. So he died in a car accident. Um, and it was horrific. So he was ejected from his truck and died immediately. And so I was called to the scene of the accident, thinking that I was going to an accident, and thinking that, like, I was assuming that I would get there, and by the time I got to the car accident, they would like be like, okay, he's at this hospital, come here or come there. And so I was driving on the way to the accident. I was actually on the phone with his best friend. I talked to her yesterday. No, I talked to her this morning. And so my husband's best friend, Keisha, is one of my best friends, Tiffany's sister. And so from a small town. So it's like our best friends are sisters. And I've always called Keisha my person because she's always been like, like I don't know, in marriages, you need a person that's team marriage. That's not team you or team your husband, but like their team family, team marriage. And that's what his best friend was to us. So it's like, no matter what we were going through, she was always going to give us like the brutal truth, but from a very like honest perspective. And you never had to feel judged or feel like she was picking sides, because the only side she ever chose was right. And so she's always been my person. And it's kind of tough because I called her on the way to the accident that morning because she's my person. This is her best friend. I'm supposed to call him and she's going to figure it out and she's going to make it okay. And so I called her on the phone. And so I was on the phone with her as everything unfolded. And to this day, I think there's a lot of things that happened around his death. But the one thing that I wish I could change, but then I wouldn't change, is the fact that I was on the phone with his best friend, because as I was living it out in like true time, she was having to like unfold everything on the other end of the phone. And so she got to hear like a lot of like really tough things that I know are like mentally still like not okay with her. Like she's in therapy now, but it's just, she heard a lot of stuff that I feel like his best friend, I hate that she had to hear that. But then it's like, at that moment, I couldn't have imagined anybody else being on the phone, because like she's always been that person. So it was very interesting and difficult that she did hear everything, but like she's always been able to kind of just be like, our person. And so in the book, there's actually like, I actually have like letters from people, from my friends that submitted letters and wanted to like give their perspective of kind of what happened. And I don't know, like sometimes I can't read the stuff that she wrote because her letter was like so detailed and so personal. But yeah, she's always been like such this like amazing force and this amazing person in our life. So I'm always grateful to her. So we talked this morning, and we just kind of shared, it's like you have these moments where you're going through grief and you assume like a lot of people that were connected to your person can help you grieve, and they can. But it's just like, it's interesting because every single relationship is different. And so like, he was my husband, but like he's her best friend, and he was his mom's only child and his son's dad and his daughter's father. Like, it's just like, it's different, but it's like we're all grieving the same person. So it's like, it's helpful to have other people, because it just reminds you that like, you're not crazy to feel the way that you're feeling. And yeah, it's so many different levels to it. But it's just like, we all lost somebody amazing. So when I see people like 7 years later talking about it or posting things about it or reminiscing about it, it makes me feel good, because it's like, thank God that everybody didn't forget about him. And sometimes you do feel that way. Like, I got married. I had 16 bridesmaids, and my husband had 14 groomsmen. And so like, it is those moments where you're like, like the people that stood with you on your wedding day, you expect to be like your support. And it's interesting because a lot of them still are my support, but then it's like some of them are just non-existent anymore. And so it's kind of sad because you think like, you guys stood with us and took like wedding vows with us. Like, especially like I take it more personal with like his friends, because it's like, these were like, you guys are men and you claim to be my husband's like best friends, and he has children and grandchildren that you guys are not like standing in the gaps of, and it's kind of sad. But then I just kind of like, I just dismiss it because I'm like, yeah, it sucks that they're not in the gaps, but then I have all these amazing people that are. So it's, I always try to tell myself, as a wedding planner, as a party planner, the biggest advice I always give to my clients is never sit in a room of people who chose to attend an event with you complaining about the people who didn't show up, because it's disrespectful to the people that did. And so that's what I always tell myself about life. I don't want to ever sit in a room of people who are there and talk about those that aren't, because that's their like, I want to focus on the love that's there. And so that's quickly kind of what I just tell myself, like, okay, they're not there, but there's a lot of people that are. And so I appreciate the people that have been standing in the gap for 7 years and always supportive and always reaching out, and always like showing up for those big moments for my family. And that's needed. And I will say I still to this day I feel super supported by a lot of people. And I do feel like I feel mentally, I know how strong I am. I do feel proud of myself for being where I am, and like maintaining my sanity. But it's tough. So I don't ever want to make it like I have everything figured out and life is perfect, and those things, because the reality is, with grief, it is hard. You will have those days. It's challenging. And I've met a lot of people online through my grief journey that I pray I've helped. And there's a lot of people that have helped me. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do the show on today, just because I feel like it'll be helpful. And it has been for me to just talk about it, talk about my feelings and get it all out, and hopefully, be able to just um, go through the day and be good. So um, I appreciate it. But yeah, so if y'all have any questions, y'all can feel free to ask questions. Um, that's kind of where we are. So, but I will say this: like I always like to suggest things to people who I always like to suggest things to people who may not understand like the levels of grief. Um, like at this point, literally, I'm not even joking. At this point, I feel like an expert. Like I've literally, and it's so heartbreaking and so sad to say this, but like I feel like I've been, because for me grief is like it's in stages, but also there's relationships that are different. So like I may can say to a person, oh, I know what you're going through, and not actually be able to say that. But I feel like just the cards that life has handed me in the last 7 years, I kind of can. Like I know what it feels like to lose a parent, unfortunately. I know how it feels to lose a sibling, unfortunately. I know what it feels like to lose a spouse. Like it's just like there's just these relationships and like the losses that I've taken, I feel like have kind of equipped me with certain knowledge to be able to talk honestly and openly about what I've gone through and suggest things that could help other people. So, what are the steps to grieving? I think for me, the main step, the first thing for me was just surrendering to grief. Like I feel like I um I surrendered to grief because it's like you have to. It's like life, like grief is going to happen. You're going to have to go through those emotions. And so for me, surrendering was the easiest and first thing to do. Like sometimes I feel like people try to like run away from it or hide themselves or just not face it. Surrender. Go ahead and just face it head on, because either you face it at day one, year one, or year 10. You have to go through it either way. And so for me, it was just like, I just feel like, let me just go ahead and surrender now. And that's why the book is called Love Letter to Grief. Like, I don't love grief. The fuck? Like, I hate it. But to me, it's like the most intimate form the most intimate form of writing is a love letter. And I feel like grief is the most intimate part of love and pain. And so that's why I titled the book Love Letter to Grief. Because it was almost like me accepting that no matter what I wanted to do, I couldn't like control it. I had to deal with it. And so it's like, we may as well get together. You know what I'm saying? Like, we may as well just rock it out because here we are. And so definitely surrendering to grief was like the first thing I did. I've had to accept the steps are not a certain order, and also I can go exactly. You can't go back and forth in grief, and like they have these stages like they say, you know, you have to go through like acceptance, and you a lot of times people like they bargain and they go through these dark stages and they go through like this angry stage, and then the thing is like you think you go through those steps and then you're going to be okay, but the reality is you can't. Like, you may be at step 1 and skip to step 4, then you go back to step 2, then you circle back around, like how do we get back to step 1? Because it's just a cycle. Like, things will happen and it'll trigger you and you'll go right back to stage 1, but because it never ends. And for me, the easiest way to explain grief for me is just like it's love wrapped in pain. And it's like there's you'll hear a song take you back to day 1. Somebody will say something takes you back to day 1. You wake up on the person's birthday, their anniversary, or you look at a Facebook memory, you're back in stage 1. And it just continues to do that. And as much as it sucks for me, like I say, it's just a reminder that I'm still here. Like, for me, it's like if I wake up and I'm in so much pain, I embrace it because I'm like, damn, I love somebody that much that I'm still fucking crying 7 years later. It sounds weird, but also like I appreciate that because I don't feel like everybody gets to experience something like that type of love. So that's just, for me, that's just kind of what it was. How did I pull myself out of it and move forward? Um, I didn't pull myself out. I feel like I'm constantly pulling myself out. For me, I just really try to focus on like the positive things, the things I can control. That's why like I try to live my life in a very like present moment. Like, I'd much rather focus on the things I have right in front of me that are somewhat in my control than trying to predict the future and trying to orchestrate what's going to be, because at the end of the day, no matter how well you plan, how much you think, we are literally not in control. And I realized that when I lost him, I was like, this whole time I've been out here thinking I'm the master of my ship and I am in control. I'm the pilot. Lies. Like, I'm really not. And it just, I realized it's like, okay, so, I can do all these things and it doesn't matter. I'm still like a prisoner to life. And that's what it is. And so I feel like I don't want to say I pulled myself out of it. I want to just say I take things one moment at a time. And depending on my mental state, that moment may be a second, it may be a minute, it may be an hour, it could be a day. So some days I'm good enough to say, just take it day by day. And I'm okay with that. But some days are so hard, I have to tell myself, take it 1 minute by minute. If you can make it through this next 60 seconds, take a deep breath and try to make it through the next 60 seconds. Like, it just depends on like the deepness of the actual day. Because some days I'm just like, okay, let's just get through the next week. And that's a good, that's a good time when I can think like a week, when I'm in a space that's healthy enough to think about the following week. But some days it's not. Some days it's just like, let's just try to get out of bed. And so I just I let myself feel whatever I need to feel. If I wake up and I'm super sad and I can't control myself from crying, I let myself cry. I put on one of my gospel songs and I listen to it. I tell myself, okay, listen, Travel, you got three plays of CC Winans Goodness of God, and then you got to get out of bed. I put myself on a schedule like that. So my main thing is just allow myself to feel it. There's days where I have it in me, and there's days when I don't. And on the days I don't have it, I don't fake it. Like, I feel like in my big grown age, just of the birthday, in my big grown age, I feel like I have earned my stripes enough to take what I can take and say no to what I can't. And whoever is offended, I could care less. And that's just where I am in life. I lost my first love, and it's been 8 years, and I'm still struggling on most days. Yeah, and I mean I cry every day. It's not always a sad cry, but I'm a crybaby. Having a grown age, not too much. Um, do you ever feel the need to fake it for your sake? I do. I do feel like, well, some days I try to be stronger just for her, but moment of transparency, don't judge me. This morning, I was laying in bed crying like the big old baby that I am. And I was very vulnerable. And I text my daughter and I said, can your mom have a hug before you leave? Because I was that vulnerable. And I was just like, it's okay. Like it's okay for her to see me sad, because like it is like, she needs to understand that like life isn't perfect and I'm not always okay. So I text her that. And I don't know if the universe decided no, but either way, I heard the front door close. And my cousin mailed me your book. Really? Are you serious? Oh wow. So she left, and I'm in bed crying. Y'all, at this point, I break down crying even harder. Like, I'm all alone. I'm like bawling, crying. But I thought about it. So she texted me. Her best friend picked up for school, so she's on her way to school. I see her moving, and she texts back, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Mom. I just saw your message." I was like, "It's okay. I love you. Have a great day at school." She's like, "I love you too." But in essence, I'm kind of like, I'm happy that I sent the text for the vulnerability side of it, but I'm also happy that she didn't see it till she got in the car, because not I'm gonna ruin her whole day like crying. God said, I no, no, no. So, but yeah, like I'm very transparent with her. Like we have these days, and she knows what and we talk. Me and my daughter talk. So she knows. Like I don't try to put on like I'm okay. Like there's days where we'll be talking about something, and I'll start crying, and we'll have a very honest conversation about it. And she's very mature, and so but there's moments where I definitely push forward and have those moments in the shower. Like I may there's nothing better than a good cry in the shower, because the tears and the water mix and you don't know what's what. It's perfect. Trust me. You guys should try it. So um I'm very honest with her though. Like I don't mind her knowing that, because grief is real, and she did grief counseling as well. She does stuff every summer with this grief program here. And so transparency, I feel like, is always good. But yeah, to answer your question, I do try to put on a strong face. With my oldest, I can talk. She is 18, gets it. My 12-year-old is hard. He's angry sometimes. Her sister. Oh, really? Hmm. Yeah, like sometimes I could, like sometimes she doesn't want to talk about it. And I get that. And her brother's the same way. I usually kind of follow their lead. Like if they say something, then I know they want to talk about it, but if they don't, then I don't. Oh, yeah, I get that. It's just, everybody's different with grief. Like I was talking to Troll this morning, and he was mentioning how he still gets angry when his cousins post about his dad on Facebook. And he was like, he doesn't want people to talk about it. And I get it, but it's like I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I get that. But at the same time, it's like you have to remember that you're not the only person that lost that person. So like for me, I see people post about my husband all the time, and I have to respect it. That was their relationship or their friendship. And it's, I just have to allow them space to grieve as well. So yeah, my daughter is 11. We just lost her dad in September. Oh, oh, my daughter was 10 when she lost her dad. It's such a tough age. Like I said, we started grief counseling immediately, and it really, really helped her. The program here in Memphis, they do like a lot of really good stuff with kids. And so I will say that grief counseling for us was a life changer. I don't know, like I have no idea how we would have done it without grief counseling. LG, high love. If anybody's just coming in, we're doing a anniversary edition of Love Letters to Grief. So she told me she didn't want to talk to a stranger. She'd rather talk to me. And that's okay. I feel like, I feel like as parents, we kind of know our kids. So maybe you just have to kind of go with what you really think is necessary. But if you find that her not getting, like her not making any like growth in her grief journey, I would say I would probably still try it, because they don't really talk when they're kids. They don't talk to them directly about grief. They do like all these activities, right? Just like these activities geared toward helping them understand stuff without directly talking about it. So it could really be helpful. Oh, that's your cousin Shells. Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Shells. I have her in grief counseling too. I think for her through the, oh yeah, that's gotta be tough. Yeah. And that's the thing, like it can be triggering, right? It can be triggering when you see other people post stuff about it, but it's good. Yeah. EMDR therapy. I don't know what, I've never heard of that. But yeah, and see the thing is like it's you're so fresh in. Like when I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I lost my husband a month ago," like it literally breaks my heart because oh, I like the way you feel in the beginning is just like so overwhelming. So it's just like it makes me emotional just anytime I meet somebody and they're like fresh in their journey. It's tough. Yeah. And the thing is like I have these like there's these moments like I remember I was driving and I was passing a bridge and I wasn't suicidal. I want to put that out there. I was not suicidal. But there was this moment, I remember I was driving and there was this moment and I was like, man, how great would it be if I was just not on this bridge, but in the water? And that scared me because I'm thinking like, hold on, the fuck? Like bridge water? Like this is not saying like this doesn't sound normal. But it was just like a very transparent moment. I thought that I was just it was something about being submerged in water and just like I don't know, it's just like something about the ideal of that just kind of made me feel like I would be so peaceful. And that's why like when I do cruises, it's like so like therapeutic for me because you're like surrounded by water and it's just like something about it for me it's just like soul cleansing. Yeah. But I think but it's just being honest and it's like there's times where I would wake up. There's times I would wake up and be like, oh, like, oh my God, like this shit again. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot. Like, and it's okay to like talk about it. I feel like it's the best thing for me is talking about it. Um, because it just helps me get it all out. That's why streaming has been so therapeutic for me. Like, you guys have no idea. Like sometimes me streaming, I have fun streaming and all the things, but like mostly the therapy that I get from streaming is crazy. And so that's what it is. Like sometimes it's just I need to just get on here and just talk through some things and work some things out of my head. And you guys are just here unknowingly being a part of my therapy. And so I think talking about it is always helpful. I can't believe it's been 7 years though. Like I can't believe it's 7 years. I can't believe I'm where I am and it's been 7 years. So you know what, Cassie, this is so funny, right? I saw this post and it said it's so crazy how people say I won't cruise because I can't swim. But you motherfuckers are fly. You motherfuckers will fly. Can you fly? Like you get in the plane. Can you fly? So I was like, that's funny. So, um, I want to talk about it year 1 or 2, and I had major panic attacks. I have panic attacks still. Like they're not as bad, but my anxiety sometimes is up and down. Like I don't know, I think I told y'all this a few weeks ago. I could not get on live. Like every time I tried to hit the live button, I couldn't. Like I was like uncontrollably sobbing. But I knew what it was. It's like mentally I was getting close to the anniversary. And it was just tough. Like it was really, really hard. So like my panic, like you guys remember because I was online with a high. Like though my anxiety was like on a 10. So oh, thank you, Deja Vu. Yeah, so that's like the thing. Like my anxiety sometimes is just like out there insane. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys for being here and talking to me in the comments and sending positive vibes to me. I always feel comfort talking about. You know, though, the shallow, the thing is, you have to find people that get it. You do. Like, you have to find people that get it. And it may not be your family. Oh, Cookie. Not you to trade me crying. And everybody think you're crazy. But yeah, like, so I don't like my today, okay, 7 years ago, right? So okay, backstory. My one of my best friends was my college roommate, and she had a son. His name was Lay. I love Lay. He was the best, sweetest little kid. His name was Lay. Well, Lay's birthday is today, and Lay passed away 9 years ago on my other college roommate's birthday. I'm gonna make this okay. Follow me, stick beside me, guys. This watch this. I'm okay. Okay. So my roommate Shasta, her son Lay passed on his birthday's today. My husband passed away on her son's birthday. Lay passed away on Nicole's birthday, who was our other college roommate. And our other college roommate was Keisha. Keisha and Nicole shared the same birthday. And Keisha is my college roommate that I lost last year. I'm just saying. It's a lot. And the craziest thing is, like, my first real introduction to grief was my friend Shasta. And she, whew, I'm telling y'all, single-handedly, like, literally gave me the handbook on grief. Like, so we were college roommates. She would come home on Sundays. She would come back to school on Sundays. Every Sunday she would cry. Every Sunday I would hear her cry. She would cry every Sunday, just like she was so sad that she left her son. She had him when she was in high school. So and I laughed at her. I was like, "Not you crying again?" Like it was a thing at this point. Like we cry for Lay every Sunday. That's just that was her thing. So every Sunday she would cry in bed. Poor little thing, and she was just so like because she loved her son so much. And when her son passed, I was at one of my friend's house. I got the phone call, and so Shasta's son and her brother are, I think, 10 months apart. Like literally, her and her mom were pregnant around the same time. Because, like I said, she had him when she was in high school. She was super young, and her mom's young. And so her brother and her nephew were raised like her son and her nephew were raised like brothers. So I got the phone call, and when he passed away, and I was told her brother died in a car accident. So I'm like, oh my God, like, cause she treated her brother like her other son. I'm like, oh my God, let me get to her immediately. So I called my best friend Nicole, our other friend Nicole. It's like, Nicole, I know it's your birthday. I'm so sorry to tell you this. Shasta brother just passed away. That's what I'm telling her. She's like, oh my God, I'm on my way. So she's somewhere. She's like, I'm on my way. So she's driving to us. I'm driving to Shasta. And by the time I get to Shasta, like the story is kind of unfolding. And it turns out it was not her brother that passed away, it was her son. And so by the time I get to her house and I walk into her room, I hear this sound that I will literally never forget. I can't even describe it. It sounded like almost like a wounded animal cry, like what you would picture like in the woods if an animal was like trapped in like a animal trap or something. And I hear her crying. I walk in the room, and that's when she confirms to me it wasn't her brother, it was her son. And I'll never forget hearing her cry. And the only thing I did, I literally got in bed with her. I remember like getting behind her, just holding her, and just like hearing that cry, and just literally like I feel like her just, I can't even explain like what it felt holding somebody going through that. And I never forget it. She was explaining it to me. She was like, because she thought initially it was her brother too. So and she's an ER nurse, so when she got to the scene of the accident, her she sees her brother walking up to her, and then she realizes it has to be her son. And I never forget it. She told me, she was like, the craziest thing is at that moment the pain never changed. And I was just like, it was just it was just insane. She was like, the way she felt literally never changed, because it was like the exact same loss for her. And she was so transparent in her loss, in her journey. Like, she always talked about it. She was very vocal. And so for me, I feel like watching her grieve and be so transparent kind of in a way prepared me for my own journey, even though I didn't understand why. And so the day that my husband passed, of course, by the time I left the scene of the accident and made it to my house, all of my friends were showing up. Like, remember I told you I was on the phone with his best friend, who's sisters to my best friend. They behind the scenes, they've connected all the dots. Like, they've made every phone call that needs to be made. Like, everything is in motion. And so, like, the scene of the accident was probably 30 minutes from my house. By the time of course, it took me a minute while I was there, but by the time I made it home, all of my friends were showing up, and she came. And I didn't realize until 3 years later, I don't know how, but like, I never put it together. Maybe it was 2 years later. I never like made the connection that my husband passed on her son's birthday. And y'all, she was one of the main people there with me. And I remember like when I realized it, I called her on the phone and I was like, Shasta. And I was like, why did it just hit me that my husband died on your son's birthday? And I was like, imagine. Like, and she was like, yeah. And I was like, why were you there? Like, I was so like distraught because I could not imagine like the agony of what she had to be going through to be grieving her son's on his birthday. But then she's like there for her friend. It was just like insane. It was just like it was a lot. So Ginger's doing a lot. Ginger is definitely doing a lot. He's doing a lot in the background. But yeah, so there was like just one of those moments, but she was always so transparent. And I tell her all the time, like, she doesn't even realize like how much she helps me just being honest about her grief. And so I find myself doing the same thing. I want to be just as transparent with people. So if anybody ever goes through this, they've seen someone be as brutally honest as possible and watch them go through it. Exactly, I'm sure. But yeah, and I remember like the first person I called after I got the phone with Darrell's best friend was my brother and my baby brother, which is my brother that I lost a few years ago. And to this day, like, I just think about like how like my brother, like I don't even know, like, so he stays an hour and like probably 20 minutes from where the scene of the accident was. And all I know is by the time I left the scene of the accident and pulled over to the side of the next street, my baby brother was there. And so like just like all these things, this is like just in the moment of like how blessed I was to have like such amazing people there with me. But then it's just like also it's like super like heartbreaking because it's like my baby brother was there, like hands down, like helping save my life at the moment, not even realizing it. And then like to lose him years later, it was just like, oh, like God, I don't know why You chose me to be on a strong people list. Ginger, you're doing a lot. Like you are. You're doing a lot. He's about to drive you crazy. But it's just, it's crazy. But I remember like my baby brother pulled up like at a like I'm like, how did he get here so fast? I don't even understand it. So question, 7 years later, do people tell you things of that day that you don't even remember? Yes, always, Cookie. So in my book, I have people that wrote letters. Um and I'm literally. Okay. So yes, like so all of my friends wrote a letter about that day. And when I read the letter, it's just like I'm like some of the stuff I don't remember. And so like having other people's perspective is really like amazing because it really like helps you understand what was going on. And so yeah, I still have things that happen. Like Keisha, she'll tell me stuff all the time, like, oh, I remember when you said this. I'm like, huh? Like I said that? And it's interesting. Like I like to hear other people's perspective of like what happened. But yeah, I do for sure. And I think the thing for me that is the most memorable for me, I remember making phone calls and like delivering the news to people because I wanted to like make sure that like the people closest to us found out in a loving way, because we live in such a world now where like social media, everybody wants to be like the bearer of bad news. It's like this competition to who can be the first person to post RIP for somebody, and it's so disheartening because it's like, why are you posting this before even we've had a chance to tell people? So my daughter Taylor was actually at her god's mom house that night, thank God. So she was at her godmom's house, and I was able to tell her the like later on that day. But for my son, when I called my baby brother because he stayed in the same hometown as Darrell's mom and his son at the time was living with his mom. So I had him to go to his mom's house and wake her up and give her the phone because my biggest fear was Martarius waking up, looking on Facebook and seeing RIP posts before I had a chance to like personally drive there. And so that's how I told Darrell's mom, and she, of course, told Martarius. And the next day, well, later on that day, because Taylor was, like I said, she was at her godmom's house, so I had some time to get my thoughts together. Thank God. Like everything that happened was just like, oh, God is amazing. Like it's just some of the stuff that happened. I just look back at it and it just gives me chills because I can't imagine what that would have looked like for me if she was at home when I got that phone call and like went with me, or because she was 10, I would have had to taken her with me. So like I thank God she was with my best friend and at the time her godmother, and so I didn't have to take her. And so that day she came home and like my mom was there, my aunt were there, and I was able, she was surrounded by people that loved her, and I was able to tell her. So, but it was very hard. Like one of the worst things I ever did. Yeah. And I did like, and I to this like my friends they all talk about like the way I delivered the news. Like I remember everybody I called they said I was just so like stoic. I was like, hey, my best friend Tamika, she was like, yeah, you called me, you were like, um, Tamika, Darrell is dead, and she was like, huh? Like I can hear this phone call in my head like right now. She was like, huh? What'd you say? But like she was so calm, and I was like, yeah, Darrell is dead, and I'm on my way home. I just wanted to call and let you know. And I'm literally like getting chills. Like I remember literally almost everybody's response, and I remember Tamika saying, "Okay, well, hun, who's with you?" Like I could be like, she's such like I remember her like she's like, "Okay, who's with you?" And she was so calm, and I was like, "I'm by myself, but I'm fine. I'm driving, and I should be home shortly." And I just remember pulling into my driveway, and like my friend Caroline was already at my house. Oh, it just gives me chills, y'all. I'm telling you, it was insane. Like the angels were already working. Like the angels were already in the works. So they were they were just like all of my friends just started pulling up like one after the next. I remember having to call my mom and just everybody, and it's so crazy because um, it's like certain people you tell, and you like you just in your head you assign these people to tell other people, right? So I told my mom, who at the time stayed like right beside my brother and my other sister. So I'm thinking, well, my mom will tell them, and I'll tell this person, and they'll tell them, and I'll tell this person, and they'll tell them. You know what I'm saying? So um, my mom was here very, yeah. And at the time, my mom lived like 3 hours away. And I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember looking up and like everybody being there. Um, like, yeah, I call my friends my circle of love. Like, they are amazing. And I am forever eternally grateful for them. Oh, wow. Yeah. And we needed that. Like, it's like, I feel like God knows what we need, and He puts certain people in our lives to make sure we're okay. And so for me that night it was Keisha. And I'll never forget it because one of Darrell's classmates died the year before of suicide. And at the funeral, one of their classmates was the person who took care of everything. And I remember we had a conversation and we were like, you know what, if anything ever happens to us, we want Michael to be the person that takes care of everything. So we'd already had that conversation. And so Keisha had already contacted Michael, and he was already like on his way to this, like he was already working, like to go to the morgue and collect my husband and, get everything together. So I told him, you had your daughter. Yeah. Oh, Lord Jesus. The thing is, it's like, oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, so sorry. You know, I'm telling you, like, it's something about the way you find out. I feel like the way you find out impacts heavily on the way you grieve. And so for me, it was like, I listen. We don't have no story time for all of this, for everything for me to tell y'all what was going on behind the scenes. But um, the phone call I got, and the way I found out, like nobody told me. I got a phone call. There was an accident. I went to see the accident, and then the police told me what was going on because nobody else knew. So I was the first like official person that knew like what was exactly going on, because like his people around him and his coworkers knew he had an accident, but no one knew he had passed. And so yeah, like I don't know, like I thank God I wasn't like at home in bed getting a knock on the door, or somebody calling me screaming, like I can't even imagine. So even though, oh my God. But yeah, I don't know, like being at the scene of the accident, I feel like I was happy, like I'm glad I went there. But it was tough. Like it was super dark. And I remember like looking over on the side of the road and like seeing his truck flipped over and seeing all this debris on the road and seeing him on the street. And I never forget. I think I was in shock. And I was asking the police officer, like initially they didn't want to they didn't want to tell me. It was like they had to verify that I was who I was. They're very big on the next of kin type of thing. And so I had to like verify who I was to them. And I never forget it. I was asking the police officer, I was like, is that a body? Like, what is that on the street? Like, because he was covered up. And I was like, what is that? And they kept like trying to distract me. Like, they didn't want to say it. And this is, y'all, I don't know what made me say this, but but Keisha told me, she was like, I told the man, I am a social worker. You can tell me. Like, in my head, I wanted to prove to him that I was emotionally strong enough to handle whatever he was about to say. He probably was like, what the hell did you have to do with being a social worker? Yes, it was. And so, yeah, so being at the scene of the accident and seeing all of that, like him on the road covered. But like as soon as I made it to the scene of the accident, I knew immediately that he was dead because like as I was I was driving up to the scene of the accident, and like when I came down like this little hill, I noticed that I didn't notice this initially, but there hadn't been any traffic at all on the opposite side of the road probably for 10-15 minutes. And in the moment, I'm not realizing that because I'm just so focused on getting to the scene of the accident. And so um once I hold on, what did it say? Oh, hold on a second. Oh, that's weird. Huh, I've never seen that. So as soon as I got to the scene of the accident, like I say, there was no traffic on the side of the road moving. And so I didn't pay attention to that. So once I got to the scene of the accident, I knew immediately that he was dead because, like I said, there was no traffic moving. Like I'm like, this is not a regular car accident. Yes, I was like, this is not a regular car accident. And once I got to the median, and I got out the car and I went over, like I crossed over. I don't know, did I jump over that thing? I don't know how I got over that railing because that railing is very tall. I don't know how I got over that. I don't remember, but I just remember like seeing everything that was happening, and I knew immediately that he passed away, just based on like everything that I could see. And I remember telling Michael, um, I remember when I called him and I was like, this is what happened. He passed away, and I want you to go get him. And as soon as you get him to the funeral home, call me. And he was like, okay. And he was so sweet. He was like, okay. And I was like, don't touch him. Don't. He was like, do you want me to clean him up? I was like, nope. Don't clean him. Don't touch him. I want to come see him exactly how he is. And in my head, looking back at it, I was crazy, but thank God that it was not anything. It wasn't like the craziest thing was once I got to see him in my head, because he died of like being ejected out of his vehicle. I was thinking like there was gonna be like blood and like bruises and like broken and just all the things, but he wasn't. Like he was in really good condition to have been like the way he died. And so in my head, I was just trying to like erase like I wanted to get the image of him on the street out of my head. And so I was like, even if he's like so messed up and banged up, I just don't want to have this image of him laying on this cold road. And so that was my initial thinking. Like I just need to come see him immediately. And when I got there, I was just like, I could not believe like how well he looked. Like he had his ear. I could tell like the trauma from the impact, like behind his ear, because it was like swollen and like there was like blood residue there. But like his face, like he had like a scratch here, but like his face wasn't like scratched or bruised or anything. And anyone that's ever like been with someone like immediately after they pass away, there's like the body is like it's still like still like it feels alive almost. Like it's getting cold and it's like stiffening, but like all of the everything is still there. So it's just like I just remember like touching his face and just like touching him and feeling like it felt so like it just was unreal. I can't like I've it was something interesting. So anybody that's just coming in, we're doing an anniversary edition of Love Letter to Grief. And yeah, today is 7 years. Whew. We're still here. We survived. I think. I think I survived. I'm here. So we'll say that I'm here. But yeah. It was interesting. Oh, my love. Yeah. But I will say I'm very proud of myself. I'm proud that oh, on the 12th. Sometimes I think 7 years time has flown by us. It does feel like that. Like it's 7 years. I acknowledge like how much growth I've had and all of the things. And I would listen. I'm not gonna hold you, girl. I I don't need to go to the store just hug strangers. I could use a hug. I'm not gonna hold you. I have not had a hug today. I could use a hug. I could. Okay, no problem, Emoji J. Thank you, love. I could definitely use a hug. Like, I would take it. You know, Cookie, I promise you, you may feel like you haven't had any growth, but I promise you, you have. I promise you. Like, even though it may feel like so, like you may feel defeated, I promise you, you've had growth. I promise you, you have. And the reason, like for me, the reason I tell people, like when I started writing my book and I was writing these love letters, I look back at these love letters and I read them, right? And I'm just like, I'll think about it. Just reached 7 years. My brother died. Seems like yesterday. I understand. Oh, girl, I lost my brother too. Like I lost my brother 2 years ago. But listen, God was doing a lot that day because I lost my dad, and then 12 hours later, I lost my brother. It was like, you trying to kill me? Like, if you trying to kill me, say that. Because what we doing? What we doing, Lord? It was a lot. It was. That one, whew. Mm, yeah. That one almost took the kid out. Yeah. Yeah. That one almost took me out. That was a lot. I wouldn't wish that on a soul. Mm-mm. Yeah. But yeah, like I say, like writing down, I always that's why I always tell people to write a letter and date it. Because that way, if you ever feel like, oh my God, I'm 2 years out and I haven't had any growth, I read some of these letters from 7 years ago and I'm like, wow, I cannot believe that that's how I felt. And so I definitely feel like by writing it down, you're able to see the growth. You're able to see like how far you've come and like, like the steps you've taken. So it's tough though. Like I was at a funeral a few years ago. My one of my friends' mom passed away, and I always tell people this because the pastor at the eulogy he said something that I it really helped me to understand grief a lot. So the pastor said, he said that he was telling a story, and he said there's a mom driving a car, and she has her kids in the back seat, and they're driving, and they notice that there's a storm, and the kids are like, "Oh my God, mom! Like this, it looks like a storm is coming up. Like we should probably pull over." And the mom was like, "No, no, we're good. We'll just keep driving." And as they're driving, like it begins to get dark, and it's raining, and like the windshield is covered with like rain and debris, and like all this stuff is like the wind is blowing, and it's getting worse and worse. And they're noticing less and less cars on the street because a lot of people are pulling over and like pulling off at the side of the road. And the kids are in the back seat panicking, like, "Oh my God, mom, like this is getting bad. Like we should pull over. Like, do you see all these other cars? Everybody's pulling over. Like it's the storm is getting worse. Like the winds are high. It's raining. We can barely see." And the mom just keeps saying, "No, we're fine. We're going to keep driving." And so the mom keeps driving. And at some point, there's no other cars on the street but their car. Everybody else is pulled over to the side of the road. And they keep driving. The kids in the back seat crying, panicking, like, we want to die because this storm is like that bad. And out of nowhere, the storm clears up, the rain stops, the wind stopped blowing, and it's like pretty outside again. And the mom then pulls over. She has the kids get out of the car and she tells them to look behind them. And she says, "Do you see all the cars that pulled over and on the side of the road that are still in the storm? Like literally." And she was like, "That's how life is. Like you can't just stop because it's storming. You have to keep driving and eventually you'll get out of the storm." And I heard that and I was just like, oh my God. Like, shut up. Like it was like and like this a moment like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense because in the moment of the storm, it does feel like you can't see anything clearer. But if you keep driving, if you keep going, if you keep pushing, you will get out of the storm. It's guaranteed. And so I always, to this day, That is what I think about all the time. So even if you're like going through a really hard storm with grief, or you're thinking about the people that you've lost, like the reality is, if you keep going, it's going to get better. If you keep driving, the rain is going to stop. Like the wind is going to calm down. The people around you are going to get quiet, and you'll be okay. And so I just feel like that analogy just like helps me like understand grief a lot better. Also, I'll say this. This is one thing I wish somebody told me day one after losing my husband that I feel like would have helped me. So for me, I was telling you guys that my birthday and the day of my husband passing is exactly a week apart. So I spent the entire first year, because people tell you like, oh, if you can make it through the first birthday, the first anniversary, the first Christmas, it gets better. Like that's what people just tell you. Like I don't know who came up with this. It's not true, but somewhere somebody said get through a year and you'll be fine. So I spent my whole first year just saying, okay, just get through to get to your birthday, get to April 29th, and you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be perfectly fine. So the morning of my birthday, I'm at my best friend's house. We share birthdays. I wake up, open my eyes, like this is the moment I've been waiting for. I open my eyes and I'm like, it was like I got gut punched and I started crying uncontrollably, full blown panic attack, like kill me now. I feel like I was back at day one. And I will never forget how heartbreaking that moment was because I had literally set myself up for an entire year just to get to my birthday. And I got to that birthday only to realize that is not what happens. So, what I wish somebody told me day one is to whoever you were right before you receive the news of losing the person that is your person, whoever you were at that moment, let that person go. Say goodbye to Travel Bay 5 second, 0.5 seconds before that phone call, zero point 0.5 seconds before seeing him on the road, zero point 0.5 seconds from the news of the police officer telling me he was dead. If somebody told me to let that person go, I think it would have changed my entire first year of grieving because I kept mentally trying to get back to the old me. Like, oh, I just need to get back to myself. I just want to get back to me. And when I realized that you will never get back to being the old you prior to that loss, it is so helpful. And so that's where I am. Like I once I realized that I was able to just like because at this point it's like you don't have to like you keep saying, oh, I just have to like get back to the old me. You won't. You're not going to get back to the old you. So at this point, now you have to decide who are you now? Like so now I've been having to focus on initially I was like, okay. And the craziest thing is, and I've talked about this before, but like maybe not to everybody. So the year that my brother and my dad passed away, I was in Miami with my with Epsy for her birthday, and we were having the time of my life. I remember it, and I remember this. It was this moment, and I was laughing, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I like this new me. I never forget it. I remember saying it to my. I said it out loud. I was like, this is the new me. I like her. Like this is good. Like this is the new me post losing my husband, post trauma, and I like this person. And not even hours later, my baby brother called and told me that my dad was dead. And I remember on the airplane home crying and feeling so defeated. Like, God, why would you let me fall in love with this new me to only snatch this person away as well? I could not believe it. And then the next morning, of course, some of you don't know this. I came home because I had COVID. Talk to my baby brother, and I'm telling him we're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. We've been here before almost, and I'm like, I'm thinking of how my baby brother helped me grieve my husband, and how now we can grieve my dad together and we'll be okay, is what I'm thinking. So the next morning, my sister called me and she was like, hey, no, she just checking out, like she was just talking. And now looking back, it was such an odd phone call, but she wasn't, I didn't feel odd at the time. And she was like, what you doing? How how you feeling, whatever. And the thing is, this is the thing that breaks my heart. So because I had COVID, I couldn't go to Arkansas to see my family. And so I was like, I'm going to just get myself better. In a few days, I'll be fine. Then I'll go to Arkansas. So I was able to talk to my baby brother, but not see him. And so when my sister called me the next day, she was like, hey, I was just calling to check on you. What are you doing? I was like, I'm laying down. I just got up. I'm just trying to still come to terms with everything. And she was like, yeah, I'm so sorry. But she was like, I have to tell you. And then she was like, Pierre passed away. And I just remember thinking, like, what? Like, I was just like sitting in my bed, like literally numb, like in shock. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no way this is happening. So it's just like, it's just like you have to figure out who you are. And so then I found myself like, okay, I don't know who I am now. Like, I literally felt like at this point, like when I lost my dad and my brother, I literally felt like every single man that I loved, God had taken from me. Minus two, my two brothers. Everybody else, I'm like my granddaddy, my dad, my husband, my brother. Like, who is left? Like, like these are the first men that I like that like had my soul. Like, and then like it was just like a lot. So now I'm in the process of figuring out who Travel Bay is. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I think that's the main thing with grief is like letting the person go that you were before the loss, and figuring out who you are going to be next. And so that's where we are. Just trying to figure things out and be okay and push through and all the things. But at the end of the day, we're going to be fine. That's no other way. That's the only option. The only option in life is to figure out how to be okay. And it's just where I am. So thank you guys for joining me in the stream and liking my stream and sharing my stream. I appreciate y'all. Y'all, we TikTok famous. We had like 70 people over here, 84 people at one time. Talk to me nice. But but yeah, that's where we are. So year 7, we survived. We didn't die. We're still pushing through. And we're gonna keep doing the work. The mental, like heavy on the mental, be mentally strong. We're still going to do that. But hi, Bridget. But if y'all have any other questions, like I say, feel free to ask. If y'all want to get a copy of my book, it's on Amazon, or you can message me in my inbox and I'll mail you a copy. If you know somebody that is going through a grief journey that you feel like could be helped with this book, let me know. At some point, I'm going to complete this book series. I'm working on 9 other books, and I just need somebody to kick my butt and tell me to hurry up and get her done. So at some point, there's going to be a whole series of love letters to grief, and hopefully you all can get a copy and be better because of it. But yeah. So today, it is. So the book is not just about grief. The book is about grief, life, love, forgiveness, family, and friends. It's like the best way to describe it. I feel like there's I think you can read it. Read it. I would say read it for. It is a quick read. Like it's less than 200 pages. You can help me finish the book. You can tell me to get it together. Thank you. Prime. Yeah, I think so. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a quick book. I never forget it. So once I wrote this book, I sent a copy of this book to the pastor that married me and my husband. I agree, Bridget. And that's why I am like I agree that the best way to like honor the people that we lost is by living. You know what I'm saying? And so um yeah, I feel like yeah, I think that's where I am. I'm all about like making memories, sharing the memories, capturing the memories. I'm really big on memories. You know, like life is all about like living and creating. So um so I sent a copy to the pastor that married us, right? And at the time, I had no idea that he was going through anything himself. And my pastor is he was not my pastor. He's just a pastor of the church that we got married at. He is a Methodist pastor, a white Methodist pastor. And as crazy as it sounds, me and my husband were the first black couple he ever married. I got married in 2012. Crazy. But we were the first black couple he ever married. And I sent him a copy of the book and he called me. I'll never forget it. He called me. He was like, hey, he was like, this is Pastor Blank. And he said, I got your book in the mail. He said, and when I got your book, he said, I thought it was one of those evangelist books. I know how like those different ministries mail out books and pamphlets and stuff. And he said, but when I saw the name, I was like, that name sounds familiar. He said, so I sat down, I was going to have my supper. He's an older guy. He said, I started reading it. He said, and I've been a pastor for, I think he said like 40 something years. And he said, I've never in my life read something that was so powerful. And he said, and I'm not even sure if you know this, but I just lost my wife a few months ago. And he said, in reading your book, he said, it literally explains everything that my soul was feeling. And I had to pull over. I pulled off on the side of the road and I was just crying. I'm getting goosebumps now. Cause it was just like, to me, it was just like, how am I, just me, able to write something in a way that someone who's been in the ministry for that many years is able to reach them. And he was like, I couldn't stop reading it. He said, I literally sat down, I opened it, and I never stopped. And so he said he read the entire thing in one sitting. So it is a quick read. Like I say, I think it is. The book is 180 pages. It's a super quick read. You're going to cry. I'm just going to pray you. There's going to be some tears, but there's going to be some laughter. But it's just a very transparent, very honest book. Yeah. You cry like crazy. Yeah. Cancer battles are hard, and it's harder when you keep it hidden and silent. Oh. You know, I had an aunt that passed away. Me and my aunt share birthdays. This actually was like this was my first birthday, the second birthday without her that I just celebrated. And she battled cancer. And so cancer sucks. I do feel that way, Karen. I definitely feel that God uses me as a vessel. And my thing is like my biggest thing, because like I feel like in life, right? And this is just I'm a very glass half full person. Hey love. I'm a very life is like I see life as the glass half full. I've always been a very optimistic person. And so even when my husband first passed away, I mean literally I'm on my way home an hour after he passed away. I'm on the phone with his cousin and I'm telling him, I'm like, you know what? I said, I already understand my purpose and I know that I'm supposed to be like that I'm going to use this as this message as like something to minister to people later. I recognized it immediately. And so now anytime somebody loses a husband, I get a phone call or I get an email, I get a text message, I get a Facebook message. It's like I'm like the widow whisperer at this point. And I embrace it because I feel I'm honored that I am so like honest with myself and what I feel, that I'm able to talk to other people and like just sit with them while they talk about their losses. Because a lot of times in grief, you don't really need somebody to try to tell you what to do like they're some expert. You just need somebody to listen. And so I found myself just being that person where if somebody's lost like their husband or their wife, I just want to offer just myself to them. Like I just want to be there, be present. So if they want to talk, they can. If they want to express something, they can. So that's kind of where I've been. And like before I started live streaming, I was a wedding planner And I always made it clear that my ministry was love. And even in losing my husband, I feel like my ministry is still love, because grief is love. And so like I'm always open to talk about grief, because it's just, to me, it's just like something so close to my heart, because it's like it's my connection to him. And so I'm always like, I always want to talk to people about it. I always want to be like transparent. It's heavy though, like sometimes I'm like in a good space and somebody will call me like, hey, like they're crying. I'm like, oh my God, mentally, I don't want to go there today. But, but it's like I also embrace that, I want to be obedient. And if God is placing me in somebody's life to talk to me, I want to be there to listen to them. But it can be challenging. But, I just do it because I want to, I do feel like it's a part of my ministry. So when I first started live streaming, that was the first show I created on the app. I started talking about my book. And I'm so like proud of myself that I was even able to publish a book and put it out there for people to buy, because I get feedback from people that I've never met. And it's so crazy. I've been in places where I'll meet somebody and I'll be talking about my book and they're like, I have your book. Like people that I'm not connected to in any sense. Like that is powerful. Like just to be talking to a complete stranger and they're like, oh my God, I saw your book on Amazon and I mailed your book to my cousin. Just like the connections that I always find with people is just like very powerful. Yeah, so I've always, thank you guys for sharing the live. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, Barrio. Crying is good though. I've stopped myself now watching you speak so lovely, even though it's sadness. Love is love. I agree, Shiloh. Love is love for sure. It's called Love Letter to Grief. Here's a copy of it. You want to screenshot it? It's called Love Letter to Grief, Learning to Walk by Faith. It's on Amazon. My mom passed in front of me. I blame myself because I couldn't save her. I was so lost. Oh, Bridget, how old were you? Thank you. I appreciate it. I was back and forth about the title, but I remember the entire, like the first couple of weeks after my husband passed, I kept telling myself, walk by faith, walk by faith, walk by faith. And so I feel like I kept telling myself I had to learn. Because like you hear people saying, like I feel like it's very easy for people to talk about their spirituality and how like connected they are to God and how faithful they are. And I feel like that's great when you haven't really had any true challenges. But I feel like the true testament to your faith is when you've been challenged. Like when life punches you in the face, let's talk about your faith then. And I feel like that's kind of where I was, like just having to like not just talk it, but walk it. March 27th, 2021. Oh. And another thing is like, and that's the thing about grief. Grief is petty. Let's be clear. Grief is petty as fuck. Like it will have you out here like disrespectful, petty, like low down. Like it will have you out here like feeling like you're at fault for something. And like for your mom to pass and you to watch her pass, and now you're having to tell yourself that it's your fault because you didn't do more. Like that's just grief being an asshole. That's all it is. Grief can be an asshole. It really can. Like, and for me, and this could be me needing to see the glass half full. I always tell myself this: the date that a person is born is set in stone. And this is my belief, and this is just me. Everybody's different. The date that someone is going to leave is set in stone. Now, what journey we take to get from point A to point B, I feel like is up to us. I do feel like there's space in that dash where we make decisions that put us in certain places. It connects us with certain people. It does all these things. But for me, the date is there. And that is the only piece that I find in any situation. Like even in the most traumatic situations where people have lost their lives, I feel like sometimes it's like you like somebody a passed away, you think there's no fucking way that was in